Hello, and we're delighted to bring you this panel on a wonderful new initiative inspired and empowered by our beloved Emmanuel Kunzelman and his beloved partner Laura Rose, the Holomovement. Emmanuel can't be with us easily today, although I believe he's actually in the Zoom room, which shows his incredible commitment and dedication to this work. But Emmanuel is actually in the hospital at the moment. So what I would like to invite us to begin our panel is by entering a moment of silence to join together in loving support for a minute and hold our deeply cherished Emmanuel and Laura in our hearts and heartfelt prayers for Emmanuel's full return to health and to support Laura in her loving care of him, and with gratitude for all they so wonderfully are and do in service to all of us and our beloved planetary home, Gaia. Thank and bless you all, and thank and bless you, Emmanuel and Laura. And now we're going to show a 5-minute video of Emmanuel, just so that we get a real sense of just how incredibly inspiring Emmanuel is for all of us and how he is guiding us in this incredible new and global project, this incredibly timely Holomovement. So if we can begin the video.
Well, yeah, it's a 50-year story here, really, that began with me when I was a freshman in college, and I had a sociology professor put forward a challenge to us. He showed all the exponential graphs on a board of climate change and technological growth and deterioration of the planet, and graphed it over time and the quantity of things. And we have this exponential curve where the quantities are increasing dramatically and showing that really time is running out on us. That was 1970, 50 years ago. But I had an epiphany in that class, and he gave it to us in an assignment. He said, this generation, this is what you're facing. Your challenge is to solve this graph showing that we're running out of time and figure out the solution. And I give you that as a lifelong purpose. Well, I took that seriously, and I've dedicated the last 50 years of my life to pursuing that purpose, to find solutions before we run out of time. And I realized at the moment that it had to do with bringing people together, somehow creating a hub to keep the activity concentric and moving towards and coordinating with each other over time. I tried to put this in practice in my personal life with the organizations I developed, non-for-profits, and always trying to put in my volunteer time first to make the organization grow and prosper. And this has led from one organization to another. But this really is a sociological phenomena here that has most preoccupied me. With all due respect to biology and the superorganism, and that's what we are, my vision of the Holomovement is a sociological process of us coming together, of all the many organizations, grassroots groups around the world. Paul Hawken has referred to them, literally millions, working in their silos, how do they come together as a single force? And I see this, the endemic wholeness of humanity, the truth, beauty, and goodness in ourselves calling out to this. So it is what leads us out of chaos. It's a sort of holotropic attractor pulling us forward into the future. And just as it's given me my purpose and my drive throughout my life, I feel that is an adequate answer to the entire world. There's a holotropic attractor telling you, you don't have to do much except rediscover the truth, beauty, goodness, the human spirit within yourself in its highest essence, and put it into practice. Find more groups to work with, more people to coordinate with, and make the Holomovement happen. So it's almost an endemic immune response to our human spirit that we're in danger, that there's a disease out there. It's called The Story of Separation by Charles and many others. We are caught in this materialistic paradigm. We've lost sight of the truth, beauty, and goodness in the whole human spirit, yet we know that that is the way back. So it's becoming calm, getting back to that inner spirit, letting it grow within us, and following the holotropic attractor into the future of coming together and working to save humanity and readjust our systems to a more fair, equitable, and loving universe. So it's a grand sociological branding of what's happening before our very eyes.
Thank you, Emmanuel. As always, that was wonderful. And I love that we are, as a Holomovement, as World Unity Week, as 99 Days of Peace, all of us together, a holotropic attractor of love in action. So I'll go next. I'm Jude Currivan. I'm a cosmologist. And so what I bring to the Holomovement is a cosmological perspective that actually is as large as the universe and as small, but not so small, as each and every one of us. So the emergence of a Holomovement as a holistically interrelated movement of movements is essentially inspired by physicist and idealist David Bohm's perception of the fundamental wholeness of the nature of reality. Yet, as Emmanuel said, until now, our collective worldview would have been unable to stand with Bohm to underpin and frame a Holomovement initiative, as we've based our global perspective of the world on materialist science and mindset of separation. And while the technologies of this prevailing paradigm have enabled us to achieve much, including our communicating as a global species, its cosmology describes a universe devoid of meaning and bereft of purpose. It considers evolution as driven by random occurrences and mutations, and treats immaterial mind and consciousness as somehow arising from material brains. The evidence of scientific breakthroughs at all scales of existence and across numerous fields of research and wide-ranging fields of research is, though, now revealing a radically expanded realization that's converging with universal wisdom teachings and spiritually based traditions, and into an integral and unitive awareness. This emergent and unifying whole worldview and its new paradigm is akin with Bohm's insights, now, however, significantly extended, founded on and framed with a further 3 decades of scientific investigations and discoveries. Instead of a universe based on materialist separation, revolutionary insights are showing that its appearance indeed emerges from deeper levels of causation, as maintained by Bohm and time-honoured traditions, and now describing a universe that not only exists and evolves as a non-locally unified entity, but vitally exists to evolve from simplicity to complexity and ever greater levels of individuated and collective self-awareness, interdependence, and perceived interbeing. Above all, leading-edge science is discovering that fundamentally, mind and consciousness aren't something we have, but what we and the whole world are, which, alongside Bohm, has also been the understanding of other scientific pioneers such as Sir James Jeans, Max Planck, Albert Einstein, and John Archibald Wheeler, all heroes of mine. An emergent cosmology of evolutionary consciousness based on the increasingly compelling evidence is finding that everything in our universe is in dynamic and collaborative relationship with everything else. It shows how cosmic mind articulated in a universal language based on digitized and vitally meaningful information and pixelated at the most minute scale of existence, literally and actively in forms, as Bohm intuited all those years ago the entire appearance of our universe, with empirical evidence from atomic to cosmological scales also demonstrating, as he also thought was the case, holographically. Essentially, our entire universe is a holomovement whose unified existence and evolutionary purpose is expressed in the holarchic diversity of its nested holonic complexity. And now where the conscious evolution of humanity may also be seen as having an intrinsic role in its ongoing emergence. For as we link up and lift up together as a hollow movement, we too are reflecting and embodying from our communal grounding what our universe does in its entirety, from its unified wholeness to the holons of its constituent parts. The innate interspirituality and inherent multidimensionality of the emergent cosmology of a conscious and evolving universe, a living universe, not only integrates the inner being and outer doing of our lives. As a unitive narrative, it invites and encourages us, but also naturally encompasses non-local sentience, including intuitive insights such as Bohm, coherent group consciousness such as ours in the hollow movement and whole worldview and all that we do to come together, and the occurrence of synchronicities such as the co-emergence of a convergent hollow movement with a unitive narrative as it was written, as meaningful way showers, as Bohm perceived. These invite us into a deeper and vitally experiential relationship with the whole of reality. A unitive and unifying whole worldview and a unitive narrative underpins, frames, and empowers our shared revolutionary purpose at this moment of our collective choice. Now indeed is the time for a hollow movement to come into being as a movement of movements, attuned to and aligned with the emergent and evolutionary flow of the entire universe. And I was asked whether I had sort of one little story of my experience of wholeness. And it takes me back 20 or more years to a time in a summer day, a summer morning near my home in Avebury in southwest England. I was in a field because I was doing some archaeological work and I was on my own, and the sky above me was clear blue, not a cloud in sight. But out of that clear blue sky came a message that I heard inwardly. And it said, in the commonality of our humanity, we're all ordinary. And in the commonality of our divinity, we're all extraordinary. So let's bring together the ordinary, the extraordinary, the inner, the outer, the masculine, the feminine, all that we are together to serve a hollow movement at this, our collective human moment of choice. So I'd now like to pass on to my dear friend, our beloved Dwayne Elgin, to take us forward in our exploration and service to a hollow movement. Oh, sorry, I do apologize. Dwayne, can you go next, or would Mason like to go next?
I'd be happy to, whatever serves the whole movement here.
You can see that the hollow movement is very emergent.
It's alive. It's alive.
Thank you, Dwayne, and thank you, Mason.
Yeah. Let's see. So I so resonate with the vision that Emmanuel expresses, a sociological force for finding our common humanity and a way forward in these transitional times. And the question is, how do we do that? How do we find our collective voice and consciousness and bring it into the world together at this time? And so I've been working for several decades, really, on an initiative I'm calling Earth Voice. And it's utterly simple. It's finding a way to use the technology that is readily in our hands to give ourselves a common voice for our common future, and to do so inviting in our deep humanity, our deep spirituality, and our sensibility that it is time for us as a species to move from our adolescence and into our early adulthood, to begin to take responsibility for the well-being of the earth as a collective whole. And people say, well, that's all well and good. But how in the world do you do that? That just sounds impossible to do something like that. And what I do is I hold up one of these, a cell phone. It turns out right now, 65%, 2/3 of the people on this planet have one of these, a cell phone. And by the end of this decade, it will be 3/4 of the people on the planet. 7 out of 10 people will have a cell phone. So we hold the future in our hands. Literally, we hold it in our hands. Because with this technology, we can reach out and communicate with a substantial majority of the people on the planet. And if you think back, it was our ability to communicate that got us from awakening hunter-gatherers roughly 10,000 years ago to where we are right now at the edge, the verge of a planetary civilization. So how do we move really fully into that possibility of a planetary civilization, the kind of movement that Emmanuel has spoken about, a Holomovement, a movement of movements? How in the world can those movements come together with a common voice for our collective future? And I say we hold it in our hands, the power to do that. And so an experiment in demonstrating the viability, the workability, the feasibility of a whole movement is now getting underway with World Unity and other figures in organizing around the earth. So this is a simple process. We can begin in the simplicity of it all just with votes. And we can say, well, look, are you feeling despair about the well-being of the earth? And people might say, well, overwhelmingly, yes, I feel that. And, well, do you want strong and fair climate action now? Well, maybe, yes, I do. And, well, do you feel like you're a citizen of the earth? Are you an earth citizen? Well, yes, I feel that. And so when you think about this, what's happening is not simply a vote going out. It is a reflective consciousness coming back. And we first of all say, well, look, I am a citizen of the earth. A new sense of identity is then being born. You may sense, well, I want strong and fair climate action now, empowerment, a new sense of agency and capacity is being born. If the world leaders say, well, thank you for your votes, citizens of the earth, we welcome your participation in this collective journey that we hold together. And then a sense of self-esteem emerges. So in the simplicity of this technology and the simplicity of the kind of beginnings for an Earth Voice, we're cultivating a new sense of identity, a new sense of agency and empowerment, a new sense of collective self-esteem. That is transformational. And that is also a vehicle. Earth Voice is a vehicle for everyone to have their voice heard, put it out there to the community of the earth as a whole, and get feedback. How do the people of the earth feel? And so this is moving beyond nations. It's moving beyond corporations. It's moving beyond the elitist billionaire class. It is saying the people that matter are the ordinary citizens of the earth. And as Jude was saying, we're ordinary for sure, but we are extraordinary in the power that we have in our hearts and in our hands to call for a new pathway ahead on this planet. So that is, in a nutshell, the vision of Earth Voice. And you can see directly how a voice for the earth really serves a movement for the whole. So with that, I send my blessings to Emmanuel and his well-being, and then also invite my brother Mason Ewald to join the conversation.
Thank you, Mason. Welcome.
Thank you, Jude and Dwayne. Jude, even if I intuit my wholeness at some level, just hearing the science articulated is always so healing, because there's something, living in a culture and in a world that seems to disagree with that, or say, tell a different story. And I feel always that sort of friction. And Dwayne, thanks for sharing, a very simple, powerful example of how we can begin to re-identify with the whole and speak for it and as it. And I'm sure we'll have a chance to explore that some more in this conversation. So I would like to share, a few ideas. After we recognize this truth of our wholeness, or this Holomovement principle, whether it's by understanding the science or through maybe our own intuitive understanding or our spiritual practice, what do we do with it? It's not necessarily easy to live as that all the time. Sometimes it flashes as an insight, or resonates as deeply meaningful. But how do we begin to embody that personally and collectively as a society? So I'll share some ideas or some tensions that I think all of us can relate to a little bit, and we can explore that a little bit further. One of those tensions or like enduring polarities might be something that like trusting our inherent wholeness, in the sense of surrendering or learning to listen to that, as opposed to acting first. It's a different kind of living, where we're sensing what the whole wants, or what is emerging through us. But at the same time, we want to stay active. We want to keep, our agency. We want to be a force for good. So balancing that listening and that trust with action is something that I'm constantly working with. Another is what Jude spoke to a little bit, is just the paradox of our unity and our unfathomable diversity all at once. So how can we hold an understanding and intuition of the whole, noticing difference, but noticing that difference as diversity and not necessarily separation, where there's inherent conflict. And there are a couple of different ways, we all might orient to this wholeness thing a little bit differently. Like I can think of, some of us might think, okay, how can I nurture wholeness within myself, my interiors? or how can I act in a way that benefits the whole? Or some of us might orient more toward the collective. How can we as a culture be a force for this wholeness? The way we are together through our relationships and the way my tribe interacts with an so-called other. And some of us like to hold the big picture view of our systems. How can our society, our structures, our tools and technologies work toward wholeness in a different way? And each of those components, I think, have a lot to offer, and there might be a way for us to all practice those in different ways. So, for example, personally, we can have a cognitive understanding of the science or the reality of wholeness, and we can also realize that needs to be embodied somehow. It needs to be like lived. So how does that begin to actually inform my way of being during the day? So this is something that I take on as, try to take on with humility as a practice. So that can be something that we nurture spiritually through whatever spiritual practice we have, knowing that, underneath our unique personalities, there is this unified consciousness that's, beating our hearts and, thinking our minds and being who we are. And there's also a way that cognitively we can practice wholeness by including more perspectives, by, thinking about what we're missing, what we do not see, that shadow that, we can always learn more. There are ways that we can practice that in an embodied sense with just our relationship to the earth and recognizing our interdependence of all systems. And then outwardly, we can think about, how do my actions every single day, how I speak to other people, the work I do, what I purchase and so forth, how does this impact the whole? How are my actions? Are they benefiting the whole, or are they, driven by more individualistic motives? And then collectively, we're all part of communities, whether those are local communities or online communities like this one we're in now. Maybe we consider, our own tribes or nations as our communities. There are different ways that we can reimagine wholeness in that sense, both by strengthening the community we're a part of and creating more interpersonal health and well-being, learning how to listen to each other differently, learning how to compromise, how to practice compassion, but then also noticing where there might be boundaries. Who do I consider my opponent or my other? And we practice wholeness that way. And then obviously there's this big challenging process that Emmanuel's speaking to, that Dwayne's speaking to, of the systems, like the collective, our ways of being at a societal level. What new government or governance processes could we begin practicing? What new ways of thinking about money and all sorts of sociological systems that are out there are in some ways reinforcing this myth of separation, are built around the individual, are reinforcing this narrative that is so common in the West, and especially in my country, in America, that what benefits the individual. And there are lots of experiments out there happening now, and subcultures and in communities where different kinds of governance are being explored, and things like different financial systems, different ways of collaborating with other organizations. But as I practice that, I continue to run into the current way or the old way of being, certain incentive structures that make it really difficult for me to collaborate, or that might threaten the safety or the health of my personal income or my organization's well-being if I team up with someone else. Or so there are all these frictions that we can encounter when we begin practicing that. And I would suggest that some of the most important values that we hold in this process are, in the beginning of this, are generosity and spirit of experimentation, because for those of us who are wanting to bring about this new way of being, we're not going to be able to, overnight, reinvent all of these systems. It's going to be a challenging process. It might get messy, but if enough of us are holding true to that North Star, we can begin offering, whatever help we can to our neighboring organizations. We can, begin helping each other by sharing resources, tools, funding, and so forth. And that's part of what we're trying to do, as a group here with the Holomovement, is exemplify that, or at least experiment with it a little bit more, so that we can have insights along the way and share those with other organizations. As Manuel said, there are hundreds of thousands or millions of groups working with very similar intentions, and there's not necessarily a lack of interest in collaboration, but it's not always so clear how that's going to happen with us retaining our own health as a group. So the more we can be in that question together, the more we might notice what some of those obstacles are and try out different ways of solving that, so that teams that want to work together can do that without feeling a sense of dilemma or threat to their own project. So those are just some different tensions I'm encountering as I begin to practice this, and as a director of an organization who's wanting to collaborate more, those are some of the things that we wonder about. And I'm sure many of you will have insights, comments, questions that are similar, but we can just carry on the conversation, and maybe we'll encounter some new ideas here. So maybe I will turn it back to Jude for now.
Thanks, Mason. Absolutely. I love this sort of emergent sense of us finding new ways to work together, to be together, to co-create together, to mutually link up and lift up together. And when I first heard from Emmanuel the whole sense of what a whole movement could be, that was where I was so excited, that we don't just understand, as you said, but how do we experience this? How do we embody this? It's a process of evolutionary emergence as a conscious evolution. So thank you so much. And now I'd like to introduce, again, our dear friends, Dr. Kurt Johnson and Dr. Robert Atkinson. And one of the early initiatives that's coming out of the Holomovement is a book. So I'd like to ask Kurt and Bob, who are essentially the guides and the editors and the maestros of our Holomovement book, to introduce it and to share with us more about it. So over to you, Kurt and Bob.
Yeah, well, thanks, Jude, and thanks, Emmanuel, and to the Holomovement for having us here. And I'd just like to say that I was able to speak to Emmanuel just a bit ago, and it was so great to know that he's doing well. And I think he's also even joined us now on audio. So thanks for having us here for a moment from the Light on Light Press, lightonlight.us, to talk about the book of Emmanuel's that we're really excited about. And that book is entitled The Holomovement, How Conscious Evolution Will Unite Humanity. So I'll just repeat that title, The Holomovement, How Conscious Evolution Will Unite Humanity, edited by Emmanuel Kunzelman and Jill Robinson. So as you know, at Light on Light, we do beautiful books. This is one that we recently did with a foreword by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And why do we do books? Well, books anchor a vision. And if you can pardon the pun, they actually give a vision a long shelf life. And that's what's important when we're thinking and moving for this long-term transformation of the world. So now I'm going to ask our Light on Light's acquisitions director, Dr. Robert Atkinson, himself a two-time Nautilus Award winner, to show you our most recent Nautilus Award-winning book, Global Unit of Healing, and then to tell you about who are the luminary contributors that are going to be in this book being edited by Emmanuel and Jill that we're so excited about. So over to Bob Atkinson.
Thanks, Kurt. Yes, our recent Nautilus Award-winning book is Global Unit of Healing by Dr. Elena Mustakova, with a foreword by Ken Wilber. And we're really pleased to move on to this project on the Holomovement book, and especially excited about the contributors to this forthcoming book that, as Kurt said, is edited by Emmanuel and Jill. And some of those contributors will be Ben Bowler, Kurt Johnson, Dr. Jude Curvan, Dr. Irvin Laszlo, Greg Braden, Joni Carley, Lynn Twist, Jonathan Granoff, Dr. David Sloan Wilson, Dr. Tamsin Woolley Barker, Dwayne Elgin, Dr. Shamini Jain, and Reverend Deborah Maldau. This is a book on the Holomovement that will help bring about a worldview shift that places the whole above all its parts. And it will help us live our lives according to this reality of wholeness, as well as to reunite the many into the one. The Holomovement assures us that there is always a synergy that exists between all the parts within the whole, whether we're aware of it or not. So we're really happy to be publishing this important, timely book that promises to contribute much to humanity's evolving consciousness. Back to you, Kurt.
Great, thanks so much, Bob. And we at Light on Light Press are going to be really happy to keep all of you in the loop on the process of this book. And so in advance, a big congratulations to both Emmanuel and Jill. And it's really, it's been a pleasure to work on this visionary book. Back to Jude.
Thank you, Kurt. Thank you, Bob. And I can also share that it's been a wonderful process. I think it's a really loving action way that the bringing together of the book itself is a Holomovement of itself. So many contributors, so much in the sense of the weaving together of this new story and this new, what we have now. This is, as I said earlier, the time for a Holomovement, perhaps the only time until now we could have initiated such a transformational, social change maker, change agent as the Holomovement, because we have a whole worldview cosmology. We have a unitive narrative that underpins and frames unity and wholeness. We have the tools, the technological tools, as Dwayne said, in our hands. We have the willingness, as Mason added, to practice within ourselves and practice with each other what this emergent way of being and doing can mean, which is the very essence of a Holomovement. And we also appreciate that this isn't just about understanding, this is experiencing and embodying this emergent evolutionary impulse and flow. So in the time we have left, we have about 10 minutes. I'd just like to open our circle up for anyone to add to what's been spoken to and shared so far. And maybe we can move, John, to some form of gallery view where perhaps Mason, Bob, Lawrence, who's with us, Dwayne, Kurt, Julie, I see, but anyone to just put your hand up and in the reactions, we can come to you. So Brian, you have your hand up.
Thank you so much. Firstly, it's a great honor to be with so many luminaries here. As I wrote a bit in the chat, I'm a visual artist. I've been a meditator since 1970. And in 2013, while meditating, I followed thoughts rise from silence back to silence and created this incredible design of a spiraling torus geometry. The first physicist that saw it said that I've modeled the creative pattern of the universe. This is what we're talking about here and now. And I just asked this incredible gathering of people, and I've offered the design for the book. I would love to team up with any of you because I'm a visual artist. I'm into nonverbal expression that translates to all beings from, all languages. And I don't need to say more other than this design led me to create our city as an international city of peace. And that's what my life is about. So I'm on the same track as all of you, but I don't write books.
But you create these incredible visuals, Brian, and truly cosmologically, we're looking more and more that the whole cosmic hologram is a torus, is a dynamic torus. So, you know, again, the power of intuition is so powerful and to be contributed. And I notice in chat, we have your email, brian@awakeningpeace.org. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Anyone else would like to either put your hand up or put your hand up in the chat to continue our exploration together? In that case, may I volunteer someone? I'd love to volunteer Lawrence, who's been very much involved with Emmanuel and the Holomovement core team, to share a few words with us.
Yeah, thank you, Jude. It's an honor to be here. And Emmanuel, if you can hear, we're all wishing for your recovery and back to perfect health.
Yes.
If the Holomovement is the foundation of Purpose Earth, and Purpose Earth is a reflection of the Holomovement. And it's as some of you know, or most of you know, it's a grant and mentorship program. We give funds to grassroots organizations to activate change in their community. We have, I think, 28 grant recipients so far. In Africa, dance company in Nigeria, empowerment program in Botswana, Native American programs. The Ramapo, 3 weeks ago, the Ramapo just received a deed from a land, for land that was taken from them in 1737. And the family that owned the land for all of these generations gave it back, and it was a ceremony in New Jersey. It's 65 acres of land, and these are the kind of activities that really express what's wrong and also what's right. And it's sort of the Holomovement. It's an example of what it is. It's really the whole. And it's sort of coming back to the roots and giving back the land. And that's the foundation of Purpose Earth, is that unity, the unitive narrative, the things that we talk about all the time. So it's as Ben said in the opening ceremony, it's a modeling, a model to bring out the wisdom energy that we all work with. So thank you, Jude.
Thank you, Lawrence. And we talk, don't we, instead of role modeling, let's step into soul modeling together into the Holomovement. So thank you. Jack, I see your hand is up. If you'd like to share some thoughts with us.
Yeah, and I'll keep it brief. Something like, I've been an activist for over 40 years, trying to do a lot of this stuff. And basically, you know, there's all those people, and myself included, all of us especially that are here today. We talk a lot about working closer together and bringing everything together. And over the years, I just can't help but wonder why those of us who seem to be so focused on getting more coordinated and collaborative and organized together, that we don't do a much better job of it than we have. And a lot of that, I think, is focused on trying to expand the movement in a larger sense, and spending a lot of time on that. And I guess I'm thinking that we have enough people that are already convinced that we need to do that we can actually get something done. And I see the synergy circles. I see what John is doing with Sign and the Weaver and this Holomovement. I see that as really taking that step forward. And I have to say that I'm starting to feel a lot better about those thoughts than I have ever in the past. So I'm just hoping that this continues to happen, because I'm starting to feel good about it.
Great. Jack, it's lovely to have you with us. And I think a lot of people, you know, we have folks here like you who've been, as Emmanuel mentioned at the beginning, 30, 40, 50 years on this journey. And as elders and still as committed and dedicated to this journey. I mean, one of the things that I'm really enjoying is having you with us and you're feeling that there is authentic hope for us making these choices moving forward. So thank and bless you. And I notice, as I think John and we have, that Emmanuel is actually with us. And Emmanuel, I think you might like to share a few words of wisdom with us before we complete our panel today.
Yes, thank you, Jude. Can you hear me okay there? Yes?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, just a second. Yes, it's wonderful to be with you all today, and thank you so much. I think this program has been a demonstration of how the Holomovement takes care of itself, even when the moderator is indisposed. And thank you, Jude, Dwayne, Mason, Kurt, Bob, the whole of you, all of you, and everyone there present today. I so love and respect you, and so appreciate your stepping in and creating such a beautiful program today. Just wanted to say a couple words that eventually we'll put information on the book on holomovement.org. That's a work in progress, but hopefully in the next month or two, you'll be able to get some preliminary information on the development of the book there. And there was another question in the chat about whether Barbara Marx Hubbard's Wheel of Co-Creation will be included in the book. And I would like to say that Barbara's wheel is the wheel that moves the Holomovement. And she was very close to me. And in 2015, we kind of co-created the Global Purpose Movement, which grew into Purpose Earth, which grew into the Holomovement. And it all spins on Barbara's vision as well. And we're all in this together, all souls wherever they may be. So just wanted to add a few thoughts. Thank you all for being there today. And thanks to the whole Holomovement team the world over for being part of the whole. Love you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Emmanuel, and we love you very much. And it really is just incredible that even in your hospital bed, your commitment and dedication, 50 years and going strong, is still very much with us and inspiring and empowering this amazing Holomovement and what it can be. And as you say, it can only be because we come together to underpin, to frame, to love each other, to realize that there is no separation. And yet I think, as Mason said, unity expresses itself in radical, abundant diversity. And for me, I think a really fundamental aspect of the Holomovement is actually to take us even beyond unity in diversity, even beyond unity in inclusion, to unity in belonging, for us to remember that we all belong to ourselves, to each other, to our beloved planetary home Gaia, and to the entire universe and the whole cosmos. So we thank everyone who's been with us today. And in addition to Emmanuel, Laura, Dwayne, Mason, Kurt, and Bob, I'd like to thank John, our maestro, who's actually kept us all together and on time through this process, and to Ben and all the team, including John at World Unity Week, and the team that is also continuing through our 99 Days of Peace until September. We are building together. We are linking and lifting up together. And I thank you all for doing so and being with us. Good night, everyone. Thank you.